He flipped our dining table because dinner was 15 minutes late. Glass everywhere, pasta on the ceiling. And his mother knocked on our door before the shaking in my hands had stopped. She lives 40 minutes away. She got there in 19. I know because I checked my phone while picking wedding china out of the sauce I'd spent 2 hours making. 19 minutes. Linda stepped over the mess like she was avoiding a puddle. Didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't look at her son, still standing there with his chest heaving. She looked at the wall behind me where marinara was dripping down the paint. "Boys will be boys," she said. "Clean this up before it stains." I heard that exact phrase 4 more times over the next year. Each time something broke. Each time she appeared faster than any GPS could explain. I thought I was losing my mind until I started writing everything down. The judge at our divorce hearing had a different phrase for it. Documented escalation with familial enablement. Linda's face when she heard those words was the first time I'd seen her without an excuse ready. She spent 30 years training her son that his anger was everyone else's problem. The court disagreed. Maya's number glowed on my phone at 2 in the morning. My sister always knew when something was wrong. But that night, 3 weeks after the table flip, I wasn't calling to vent. I was calling to confirm I wasn't crazy. "Read it back to me," she said. "Everything you wrote down." I pulled up the notes app. 4 incidents documented. 4 impossible arrival times. My voice sounded steadier than I felt as I read them out loud. Month 3 of our marriage. Derek screamed so loud the neighbors texted asking if everything was okay. His voice cracked the air for 20 minutes straight. Linda knocked on our door 31 minutes after it started. She lives 40 minutes away without traffic. She brought wine. "Marriage is hard, sweetie," she said, settling onto our couch like she owned it. "Men need to let off steam. It's healthier than bottling it up." Month 7. The lamp went through the window because I'd bought the wrong brand of coffee creamer. Glass scattered across our front lawn at 9 in the evening. Derek was still picking shards off the porch when headlights swept the driveway. 28 minutes that time. Linda had driven 30 miles in 28 minutes at night. She helped him take cardboard over the hole while I sat inside shaking. "Work stress," she told me. "He's under so much pressure. You understand." I didn't understand. Not then. But I was starting to. Month 11. The sound of his fist hitting drywall still echoes in my memory. 6 inches from my head. I'd felt the wind of it brush my hair. The hole is still there in our hallway because Derek refused to patch it. "It reminds you not to push my buttons," he'd said. Linda arrived 23 minutes later. I hadn't called her. Derek hadn't either, not that I'd seen. But there she was, standing in our hallway, examining the hole like it was a piece of abstract art. "Katie, honey?" Her voice dripped with something meant to sound like concern. "You know how to set him off. Maybe work on that instead of decorating around the damage." Month 14. The incident that made me start really paying attention. I'd called Maya during one of Derek's spirals, hiding in the bathroom while he pounded on the door. He'd ripped my phone from my hands mid-sentence and smashed it against the tile. Maya called me back on a house phone 20 minutes later, frantic. By the time I answered, Linda was already in our kitchen, sweeping up the phone's remains. "He felt disrespected," Linda explained while I stood there with my dead phone in pieces at her feet. "When you run to your sister instead of working things out with your husband, what do you expect?" "The times don't work," Maya said when I finished reading. "You know that, right? The math literally doesn't work." I did know. That's why I'd started writing it down. 4 incidents. 4 arrivals that defied physics. Linda couldn't possibly know when things were happening unless someone was telling her. The question was how. And once I figured that out, everything else would start making sense. The spreadsheet took me 2 hours to build. Date. Incident. Linda's excuse. Linda's arrival time. Distance from Linda's house to ours. I sat at my desk at work during lunch, entering data like I was prepping a quarterly report instead of documenting my crumbling marriage. The numbers were worse than I'd remembered. Average arrival time across all 4 incidents was 26 minutes. Fastest possible drive from Linda's house to ours, according to 3 different map apps, was 38 minutes. And that assumed green lights and no traffic. Someone was tipping her off. The only question was who. I photographed the hole in the hallway that night. Derek was at a work dinner, so I had time to really look at it. 5 months old and still raw, the edges of the drywall crumbling slightly where his knuckles had connected. I'd walked past it every day trying not to see it. Now, I made myself look. Evidence. I needed evidence of the pattern before anyone would believe me. Before I would fully believe myself. The next morning, I ran a test. Texted Derek something small and annoying while he was at work. Asked if his mother could take a different day for her weekly dinner because I had a work event. Nothing explosive. Just enough friction to see what would happen. 11 minutes later, my phone rang. Linda's name on the screen. Katie, I heard you're trying to cancel our family dinner. Her voice was sugar over steel. That's really hurtful to Derek. He looks forward to our time together. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Derek hadn't had time to call her, drive somewhere private, and have a full conversation in 11 minutes. He was in an open-plan office surrounded by coworkers. Which meant one of two things. Either he texted her the moment my message arrived, or she had some other way of knowing. Either option made my skin crawl. I pulled up my spreadsheet and added a new row. Test message sent at 9:47 a.m. Linda's call received at 9:58 a.m. 11 minutes. That night, I checked Derek's phone while he showered. His text thread with Linda went back months, message after message. But what made me stop breathing was the pattern. Every single text from him to her preceded her impossible arrivals by the exact time it would take her to get in her car and drive. He wasn't just telling her about the incidents. He was alerting her the moment they started. Sometimes before. One text for month 7 caught my eye. Sent at 8:43 p.m., 17 minutes before the lamp went through the window. Having a bad night. Might need backup. She'd already been on her way before the glass shattered. She'd already been driving before he'd even decided to throw it. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't crazy. There was a system in place, and I'd just found the manual. I brought up couples therapy over breakfast. Said it casually, like I was suggesting a new restaurant. Derek's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Why would we need that? Just to work on communication. I kept my voice light. Lots of couples do it. It might help us understand each other better. He didn't answer. Just set his fork down, pushed back from the table, and walked out of the room. I heard his voice from the bedroom, low and urgent. The words weren't clear through the wall, but the tone was. 63 seconds. I timed it. That's how long it took him to call his mother. The call from Linda came that afternoon. I was at my desk, pretending to work while my spreadsheet sat open in another tab. Her name on my screen made my stomach drop. Katie, I need to talk to you about something. No greeting, no pleasantries. Derek told me you want to drag him to therapy. I suggested we try it together. As a couple. Therapy is for broken people. Her voice was cold. My son isn't broken. You're just not handling him right. Every marriage has rough patches. You don't air your dirty laundry to some stranger with a clipboard. I wanted to tell her that rough patches don't involve holes punched near your wife's head. I wanted to ask if her arrival times were part of handling him right too. Instead, I said, I'll think about what you said. That night, Derek watched me move around the kitchen like I might explode if he looked away. I asked him one question, keeping my voice casual. When something upsets you, do you tell your mom before or after you break things? His face went blank. Not angry, just empty. He walked out without answering, and I heard him on the phone again before the door closed behind him. 3 days later, my mother called. Her voice was strained in a way I hadn't heard since my father's funeral. Honey, I just got off the phone with Linda, Derek's mother. She's very worried about you. My whole body went cold. What did she say? She said you've been acting erratically, paranoid, that you've been making wild accusations against Derek and keeping strange records about the family. She thought I should know in case you need help. Linda wasn't just managing Derek's rages. She was building a case against me before I could build one against her. Every excuse, every impossible arrival, every sweet-voiced deflection had been laying groundwork. And now, she was contacting my family to establish that I was the unstable one. I thanked my mother, told her everything was fine, and hung up before my voice cracked. Then I opened my spreadsheet and started a new tab. This one was labeled Preemptive Discrediting. The first entry was dated today. Derek made his announcement over dinner. Chicken that I'd cooked perfectly because I'd learned that undercooked meant screaming and overcooked meant silence that lasted for days. Mom's moving in to help out around the house. I set my fork down carefully. We didn't discuss this. We're discussing it now. He didn't look up from his plate. She wants to be closer to family. The guest room is just sitting there. It makes sense. No. The word came out before I could soften it. Derek, absolutely not. We need space as a couple, not your mother living in the next room. His head came up slowly. I knew that look. The way his jaw tightened, the way his shoulders squared. We were maybe 90 seconds from another hole in the wall. She's my mother, Kate. And this is my home, too. I get a say in who lives here. He stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. The sound cut through me like a warning. I was already calculating the distance to the front door when his hand shot out. The shove caught me off guard. My hip hit the counter edge first, then my wrist bent wrong trying to catch myself. Pain shot up my arm, sharp and immediate. I heard myself make a sound that didn't feel like it came from me. Derek was between me and the door now, his breathing heavy, his hands still raised like he wasn't sure what to do with them, pounding on the front door. Mrs. Chen's voice, high and worried, calling my name. She lived in the apartment below us. She must have heard the impact through her ceiling. Derek blocked the door. She'll go away. My wrist was throbbing. My shoulder felt wrong. And behind me, Mrs. Chen kept knocking, kept calling. Kate? Kate, honey, are you okay? I heard something fall. I moved before I could think about it. Reached past Derek with my good arm and turned the deadbolt. Pulled the door open while he was still deciding whether to stop me. Mrs. Chen's face when she saw me holding my wrist will stay with me forever. The way her expression shifted from concern to understanding to something harder. She'd heard the impact. She knew that wasn't a fall. 11 minutes later, Linda's car pulled into our parking lot. 40 minutes away. 11 minutes. She took in the scene like she was assessing damage to a rental property. Derek standing in the doorway, Mrs. Chen still on our threshold. Me, cradling my wrist with tears streaming down my face. She falls a lot, Linda said to Mrs. Chen. Her voice was casual, almost bored. It's embarrassing for everyone. Family matter. Thank you for checking in. Mrs. Chen didn't move. Didn't take her eyes off me. I heard the impact through my floor, Linda. That wasn't a fall. That was a shove. Linda's smile didn't waver, but something behind it went cold. I think you misheard. I think I didn't. The emergency room nurse was gentle when she photographed my wrist. Sprain, not fracture, but she documented the bruising anyway. Pressed the camera button 3 extra times without being asked. For your records, she said quietly. In case you need them. I understood what she meant. She'd seen this before. Probably saw it every shift. Women who fell, women who walked into doors, women whose injuries told a different story than their explanations. Maya picked me up from the hospital at midnight. Her face was stone, the whole drive to her apartment, but her hands shook on the steering wheel. Show me everything, she said once we were inside, all of it. I pulled out my laptop and opened the spreadsheet. The arrival times. The text messages I'd photographed from Derek's phone. The new tab labeled Preemptive Discrediting, with Linda's call to my mother documented in detail. Maya read it all twice without speaking. This is good, Kate. This is really good. Have you talked to a lawyer? Not yet. We're changing that tomorrow. I sent the ultimatum text from Maya's couch at 2 in the morning, typed it 4 times before I got the wording right. Therapy or divorce. Choose by Friday. Then I copied Maya on the message, forwarded the entire text thread to my personal email, and waited. Friday came and went. Saturday morning passed in silence. Derek's response arrived Sunday afternoon. Mom says you're being dramatic. She's moving in next month whether you like it or not. Come home when you're ready to apologize. Maya was reading over my shoulder. Please tell me you're not actually considering going back. Never. My fingers were steady on the keyboard. Then she can clean up your next tantrum. My attorney will be in touch. I screenshot the exchange before he could delete it, added it to the evidence folder. Then I called the lawyer Maya had found and scheduled an appointment for first thing Monday morning. Derek tried calling 7 times that night. I let everyone go to voicemail. In the morning, I'd have missed calls from Linda too, each one increasingly frantic. But by then, I'd already be sitting in a law office with a binder full of evidence, watching an attorney's eyebrows climb higher with every page. The marriage was over. The documentation was just beginning. My attorney's name was Ruth, and she'd been practicing family law for 23 years. She flipped through my evidence binder like a woman reading a thriller she couldn't put down. The spreadsheet with the arrival times, she said, tapping the page. This is particularly damaging. You've established a pattern of coordinated response to domestic incidents. The opposing counsel will have a hard time explaining how a woman 40 minutes away consistently arrives in under 25. She turned to the photographs. My wrist. The hole in the wall. The text messages where Derek alerted Linda before his own explosions. This is one of the most documented cases of escalation I've seen in 2 decades. Most people don't start keeping records until it's too late to establish a pattern. You were smart. I didn't feel smart. I felt like a woman who'd waited too long to do what should have been obvious from the start. Linda paid for Derek's divorce lawyer out of savings she'd been keeping for his future. The attorney she hired was expensive and aggressive, but Ruth wasn't intimidated. They're going to claim you were the abusive one, Ruth warned me before the hearing. That's their only play. The documentation makes it impossible to deny the incidents happened, so they'll try to flip the narrative. They tried. Derek's lawyer painted me as unstable, paranoid, a woman who kept obsessive records because she was building toward false accusations. Linda submitted a statement calling me mentally unwell and suggesting I had manipulated Derek into situations designed to make him look bad. The judge read through everything. Both sides. Every document. The statement from Mrs. Chen confirming what she'd heard and seen the night of the final incident. The emergency room records. The spreadsheet that Ruth had blown up on poster board for clarity. When he spoke, his voice was flat. The evidence suggests documented escalation with familial enablement. The respondent's mother appears to have been notified of incidents in real time and arrived to manage perception rather than prevent harm. Linda tried to speak from the gallery. Your Honor, if I may. Ma'am, you are not a party to this divorce. Please remain silent or you will be removed. Her mouth opened and closed. For the first time in my memory, she had no words, no excuses, no smooth explanation for why her presence at every violent moment was just coincidence. Derek was ordered to complete anger management classes and attend mandatory counseling. The judge noted that if children had been involved, supervised visitation would have been required. Our assets were divided cleanly, with special consideration given to what the court called documented intimidation regarding shared property. I walked out of that courtroom with my binder tucked under my arm. Linda was waiting in the hallway, her face a mask of controlled fury. You've ruined him, she said. Everything I built for him, you've destroyed. I could have said a lot of things. That she was the one who'd built a monster by teaching him his rage was everyone else's fault. That her impossible arrival times and careful excuses had trained him to believe there would never be consequences. That she'd spent 30 years protecting him from the results of his own actions, and all she'd really done was delay the inevitable. Instead, I said, he ruined himself. You just taught him he could. Then I walked past her and out into the parking lot where Maya was waiting to take me home. My new home. The one without holes in the walls. 6 months later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. The woman on the other end had found me through court records that were technically public. Her name was Brittany. She was Derek's new girlfriend. I'm filing a restraining order, she wrote. The police told me to document everything. I found your case in the system and I wanted to reach out. His mother keeps saying the same thing to me, that he just needs a woman who can handle him. I sent her Ruth's number. Told her to ask about establishing a pattern. Told her the documentation was what made the difference. 3 weeks later, Brittany's restraining order was granted. In her statement, she quoted Linda directly. He just needs a woman who can handle him. The judge noted it was the second time in 18 months that phrase had appeared in legal proceedings involving the same family. Linda's Bible study group at church started asking questions after the details became public. The court records were accessible to anyone curious enough to look. 3 families stopped attending her weekly meetings. Her pastor had a quiet conversation with her about whether she needed to take some time away from leadership roles. Derek moved back in with his mother after Brittany's restraining order went through. Last I heard, they were both telling anyone who'd listen that he'd been the victim of 2 vindictive women who couldn't handle a strong personality. But the legal record says something different, and legal records don't care about excuses. She spent 30 years teaching him that his anger was everyone else's fault. Turns out, judges don't grade on the mother-in-law curve. Thanks for listening. If you want more stories like this, hit subscribe. New ones every day. Take care.